Hey guys, Fishmonger here. You're familiar with inferior SATA power cables, the ones that they have that they ship with those generic risers where you can hook them up between the riser and like your Molex or something and it converts the power so you can power your riser, and how inferior they are because they suck, because they burn and they melt and they cause house fires and lots of that other stuff. Well, apparently there's other things we have to look out for. Now we have to keep an eye out for PCIe power cables that power either your antminers or even just your GPUs, depending on what style you get. So let's take a look at this. A little bit of a background. I work with a lot of high-end or fairly high-end car audio equipment. I actually have a Rockford Fosgate 12-inch subwoofer in the back of my car with a custom-made subwoofer box that I made up myself, and it's actually fits right in the back of my my Honda, which is nice. And it's powered by a Kicker DX1001 amplifier. I'm looking at the box up there. And I got a couple of Kicker 6.5-inch component speakers in there. So all in all, I mean, it's a pretty decent system. I had to run a 4-gauge power cable from the trunk to the back, and I've got some really nice quality speaker cable, you know, that runs from the subwoofer, because that thing will pull 1,000-watt RMS at 2 ohms between the amp and the sub. And you know, even prior to that, I've just worked with cables a lot all my life, so I'm familiar with good quality cables and bad quality cables. And I came across this auction and I started scratching my head because I said to myself, I recognize these cables from somewhere. Just from this picture, I recognize these cables, and I've never seen a PCIe power cable in blue and black before. What am I looking at here? What am I seeing? So I digged into this a hair and I started looking at some of these pictures and I said, oh, this is audio pipe cable. Audio pipe 16-gauge primary wire AP16 cable. I'm familiar with that because I saw that when I was shopping around for speaker cable, which in the end I ended up using Rockford Fosgate cable, but I saw this. And immediately I said to myself, this isn't 16-gauge wire. You could say 16-gauge on there all at once. And it's not copper wire. This is basically a scam. So, for the uninformed, a lot of speaker wire is made from what's known as CCA, or copper-clad aluminum. And essentially, it's like 80% of the center of that wire is aluminum, which is still a good conductor, but not as good as copper. It's just a lot cheaper. And then the outer, 20% or whatever is covered with copper. So it's basically like aluminum conductors covered with copper conductors. And the reason they do that is because what's known as the skin effect, where electrons tend to flow to the outside of a conductor, yada yada yada. I'm not going to get into it right now. But it's like a nice compromise between a cheap cable and one that still functions like really well. The problem is that for power delivery, aluminum is nowhere near as good as copper. There's a reason why nobody uses aluminum cables when they're hooking up their car battery to their speaker system, or they use aluminum cables in their boat when they're hooking up their power delivery systems, or in their diesel truck, or anything that requires good, strong power. Aluminum is only about 60 to 70% as efficient as copper. Same holds true with the CCA wire. So I saw this auction and I said, this ain't right. What's going on here? So I read down a little bit, and I saw, oh, okay, so he's saying each cable is 16 AWG. By the way, AWG really stands for the American Wire Gauge, which is not what these are. Because if you even look at audio pipe AP16 cable on Walmart, they clearly tell you, this is not American Wire Gauge. It's slightly under gauge. And it also says it's stranded copper-clad aluminum. Pay particular attention to that. Alright, and then he's even saying the current capacity of each cable is 30 amps. And I get where he's going with this, because apparently a cable to him is 6 conductors. So 6 conductors at 5 amps each ended up being around 30 amps for the cable. However, in a DC circuit, you really only have 3 positive and 3 negatives, so the current flow is not going to be 30 amps running through the one cable. The max you can get is 15 amps because of the way the system works and the flow works. So I called this guy out, and I basically questioned him, politely. So my first question to him was just very simply, what type of wire is this? Solid or stranded? And is it pure copper or something else? Came right back and replied, yeah, it's stranded, pure copper. To which I asked him, really? Do you have the UPC from the reel? Because I know that you can check the UPC and, cross-reference that to what the actual reel is in the material. I'm interested in a bunch of these. I wasn't, but I just want to see what he would say. But I need to make sure they can handle my mining rig power draw. You say each cable is listed for 30 amps DC, assuming 12 volts. If you're not 100% sure about this, I even gave him the option here. I said, if you're not 100% sure about this, I would look into it. I've never heard of audio pipe before, and I have. But it sounds like speaker wire and not power wire, and they're not usually the same. To which he replies, and I love this, I don't have the UPC from the reel since I have since recycled them. Hey, score 1 for planet Earth. The current draw is based on the wire gauge and conductor material type. The only difference between power wire at 16 gauge and speaker wire at 16 gauge is the insulation type. The insulation used on this wire is good to about 30 volts AC or DC, and is usually used for 12-volt audio systems, power speaker, etc. And I love this part. This gets me every single time. A little bit about me, like I asked. I'm an electrical instructor, and I'm responsible for qualifying electricians to be state licensed. At this point, I knew I was dealing with the Joker, so I went right into him. So then, shouldn't you know the difference between CCA and pure copper wire? And the fact that CCA wire has less current rating than pure copper, and is more brittle and susceptible to metal fatigue? AP1, and I should have wrote AP16, from audio pipe is CCA wire. It took me 5 minutes on Google to figure that out. It's the junk they sell at Walmart, the stuff we just found at Walmart. Also, you should know that a listing of 30 amps is completely wrong, considering the terminal on the ends is only good to about 9 amps. So any person trying to pass more than that will fry their system. So I thought he was referring to 30 amps per wire. He meant per cable, so that part, you can kind of disregard that part. But he came back and he said, sorry for the misunderstanding. I certainly was not trying to come off as being smug. Just trying to reassure you that I'm knowledgeable of what I am selling. To which I replied, but you are not, because you're telling me it's pure copper wire when it isn't. It's CCA wire, which is copper-clad aluminum. Basically aluminum wire with an outside coating of copper. They are two completely different things. And as I said, your power ratings and calculations are way off. To which I kind of went into a little bit further. Look, someone's going to burn their house down. It's going to be your fault. It may not happen, but it's a potential. Somebody tries to run 30 amps for this. Where you want to go this auction and these items is up to you. But I've said my piece and hopefully taught a state licensing electrical instructor a thing or two. Now, if I was a state licensing electrical instructor, legitimately, and I was all wrong on this, I would just come straight out with it and say everything right, oh my gosh, you're absolutely right, I'm totally, my bad, this, that, and the other thing, I'm so sorry, because I don't want my reputation to get screwed with. I mean, I'm a state licensing electrical instructor. But his only response was, so you aren't interested in purchasing? And yeah. So I come back from a bullshit artist who doesn't even know why he's selling. Hell no. This is going straight on the do not buy. Facebook, Twitter, etc., YouTube, for other crypto junkies to see, which I'm very active on. I recommend you get your auction description straightened out, Mr. I am an electrical instructor and I'm responsible for qualifying electricians to be state licensed. Your product isn't bad. The product's not bad. It's your lack of knowledge of what you're selling, the fact that it's all wrong. Look, CCA wire is fine. It's got a time and a place, and it can be used for what he's selling it for, but you can't sell it with the wrong specifications and then have somebody use it for something it's not intended for and then break it. And then break, his GPU or his computer or his house, for instance. I mean, that's just not cool. Look, just say it's CCA wire, put the right ratings on it, and you're fine. A lot of people would still buy these, and then you'd be okay. But to claim it's something it's not, that's not right. So I come back to him, I said, you really want to try to keep bullshitting me, don't you? You have no idea who you're talking to and the electrical background that I have. Not what I claim to have, but what I actually have. It doesn't really matter how much I have because he doesn't know. The instant I saw crap speaker wire, I knew you had no idea what you're doing. But keep it up. You're making a nice conversation on the forums. I'm posting this to you right now. And I did post this on a couple different forums, so people are aware of this. You know, the right thing to do would be to say, I lied, I have no idea what I'm saying, my auction is wrong, and I'll do good to fix it. Not, well, no one has complained yet, so that must mean I'm doing a good job, right? His last response, and the only response I got from him since then, was, I'm sorry for any frustration I may have caused. Please have a good day. In other words, yep, I got called out, and I'm not going to say I was wrong, but I'm sorry you don't want to buy my item, and that's it. And at this current moment, which is roughly an hour after we had this conversation, he still has this auction set up listing the same information. So nothing got changed, and he's going to continue to scam people and bullshit people and sell crap to people that is incorrect. And he's got other stuff for sale too. I mean, he's selling a 980 Ti, you know, and a GTX 1070. I mean, look, obviously he's making his own cables. There's the pins and the terminals, and he's got other cables here and these. And I mean, it's like, I can't trust any of these auctions because I've already found out the one auction was completely wrong and he completely bullshitted and lied about everything. So God only knows if this auction he's selling here is right, is new. I mean, probably not because of, I mean, who's to say he's not lying about this too? So Fishmonger's PSA of the day: do your due diligence, do your research, check on the background of stuff you're buying, whether it be you know, risers, whether it be the GPUs, whether it be the power cables that go along with them. Make sure you're getting what you pay for, because there's a lot of people right now who are just trying to take advantage of the market and sell stuff that isn't legit, or sell stuff that they're trying to, you know, scam you in one way or the other. There's a lot of scams out there, and it's not just eBay. There's a lot of other places too. Craigslist, Amazon, the list goes on and on. You know, as a consumer, you just got to watch out for yourself. So I'm just going to leave it at that. This is Fishmonger. I'm signing out. You have a good night.